Have you ever heard the one about the hitchhiker who vanishes from the back seat, or the girl who was dared to say Bloody Mary 3 times in the mirror and never came back from the bathroom? Welcome to the Scaryverse. I'm Ro, and today we're diving headfirst into the deep, dark woods of urban legends. I'm Ro.
And I'm Salem.
Let's dive into the Scaryverse. Why do we tell these stories? What truths hide behind the fiction? And how much danger lies in believing or ignoring them? From campfire tales to TikTok terror, we're going to trace the roots of these modern myths and maybe, just maybe, uncover why they never seem to die. Let's start with what makes an urban legend tick. These stories are usually short, strange, and always told as if they happened to a friend of a friend. That detail makes them feel real, even if they're totally made up. The key characteristics of an urban legend are they're told as true, they are timely and location based, and they're often cautionary. Like, don't pick up strangers, don't have premarital sex in the woods, don't flash your lights at a gang member. There's a psychological function to them. They teach societal values through fear. They externalize anxieties, crime, strangers, technology, urbanization. A famous example of this is the killer in the backseat story. A woman is warned by a gas station attendant that someone is in her backseat. Turns out she narrowly avoided being killed. This one reflects real fears about women's safety and our blind spots, literally and metaphorically. Let's start in the bathroom. Candles flickering, a dare whispered between middle schoolers, and a mirror waiting to reflect something that isn't supposed to be there. You know her name. Say it with me. Bloody Mary. I've been terrified of mirrors in the dark ever since I was dared to summon her. But here's the thing. She's not alone. The idea of summoning something through a mirror or calling on a spirit through a ritual is a global obsession. Let's look at a few more terrifying traditions from around the world. Japan has its own school bathroom ghost. She's called Hanako-san. And if you knock 3 times on the third stall in the girls' bathroom and ask, Hanako-san, are you there? She'll answer. Some versions say she pulls you into the toilet and drowns you. Others say she appears covered in blood and just stares. Hanako became so popular, she's basically a horror icon in Japan, featured in anime, games, and even real haunted school tours. Also from Japan, because Japan does not play when it comes to urban legends, we get Kuchisaki Onna. I really hope I'm saying that right. A woman who wears a surgical mask, super normal post 2020, and asks people, am I pretty? If you say yes, she removes the mask and reveals a horrifying slit from ear to ear and asks again. Say no, she kills you. Say yes, she cuts your face to match hers. There are stories of kids in the 2000s being sent home early from school in Japan because someone said she had been seen nearby. She's folklore, but she feels like a true crime story that never happened. Also kind of reminds me of the Joker from Batman. And then we have the elevator game from Korea, an internet legend this time, but it acts like a ritual. The game goes like this. You enter an elevator in a building with at least 10 floors. You write it in a specific sequence. 4, 2, 6, back to 2, and then 10, and then 5. And when a woman enters on the 5th floor, you don't look at her. You don't speak to her. If the elevator then ascends to floor 10, you've made it to the other worlds. Everything looks the same, but you'll feel something's wrong. This game has exploded on TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube, and it feels like a millennial Bloody Mary. You're not asking to see something scary, you're choosing to cross a threshold. Number 4, the Midnight Game. Supposedly based on a real pagan ritual, this one dares participants to invoke a spirit called the Midnight Man. You write your name on a piece of paper, prick your finger, place the paper and blood at your front door, and then walk around your house in the dark holding a candle. If your candle goes out, It means he's near. The rules: don't stop moving, don't let the candle go out, and absolutely do not stay in one place. It's so detailed, it almost sounds real. But it likely began on creepypasta forums before spiraling into an international trend. What all these stories have in common is a ritual, a set of rules. You're not just reading the legend, you're participating in it. They blur the line between story and experience, and that's what makes them so powerful. Have you ever done one of these rituals? Bloody Mary, the elevator game, the midnight game? Did anything actually happen? Tag the Scaryverse podcast and send me your experience. I want to read the wildest ones on a future minisode. So far, we've talked about scary stories that feel real. But what happens when the story is real? What happens when that creepy tale passed around at school actually has roots in true crime or local history or something even darker? This next segment, we're looking at urban legends with a horrifying grain of truth. Let's start with the one that gives me chills every time, Cropsey. This was the boogeyman of Staten Island. Parents used to tell kids, don't wander too far, Cropsey will get you. He supposedly lived in the woods near the abandoned Willowbrook State School, which was already creepy enough on its own. The school had been shut down after an expose revealed horrific abuse of disabled children. It was covered in filth, children were neglected and abused, literal horror. So this fictional figure, Cropsey, became the embodiment of every parent's worst fear, a man in the shadows snatching kids. But then it got real. In the 1980s, several children in the area actually did go missing. And eventually, a man named Andre Rand, a former employee of Willowbrook, was arrested and convicted of kidnapping. He was never convicted of murder, but the implications were bone deep. The 2009 documentary Cropsey by two Staten Island filmmakers who had grown up with the legend digs deep into how this myth was hauntingly real. This is why urban legends matter. They're not always just made up. Sometimes they're how a community processes real trauma. This one sounds ridiculous until you realize it actually happened. In the 1970s, residents of Fairfax County started reporting a strange figure, a man in a bunny costume, who was chasing people with an axe near a remote tunnel. Like, what? At first, people thought it was a Halloween prank, but then multiple reports came in. One woman said the bunny man threw an axe at her car. Police were called, witnesses were interviewed, and although no one was ever arrested, there were real incident reports on file. The legend stuck. Today, locals call it the Bunny Man Bridge, and every Halloween, people sneak out hoping to see him. He's become local folklore. But the spark, that came from something that really happened. You've heard this one before. A couple is making out at Lover's Lane. The radio cuts in with a news bulletin. A man with a hook has escaped the nearby mental institution. The girl gets scared and asks to leave. The boy is annoyed, but he gives in. When they get home, they find a bloody hook hanging from the car door handle. Classic urban legend, right? But here's the thing. It feels like it could have happened. And that's the point. This story dates back to the 1950s when America was deep into moral panic about teens having sex, listening to rock music, and sneaking away from parental control. The Hookman became a stand-in for punishment. The legend's message: if you disobey your parents or your community rules, you'll get the hook. It's slasher morality years before slasher films became a thing. This next legend runs deep. The Wendigo comes from Algonquin folklore. It's described as a spirit of famine and greed that possesses people during winter. When someone gives in to hunger and commits cannibalism, or sometimes even just becomes obsessed with their own survival, they become a Wendigo. Tall, emaciated, always starving, often depicted with antlers and frostbitten flesh. And this isn't just symbolic. In 1878, a Cree man named Swift Runner killed and ate his entire family during a harsh Canadian winter. When caught, he said he was possessed by a Wendigo. Today, psychologists call it Wendigo psychosis, a controversial diagnosis that was used to describe people who believed they were turning into the creature. One of the most chilling cases where myth and mental illness blur into one terrifying narrative. You've probably heard this one if you ever had a dog as a kid. A girl is home alone. Her dog licks her hand from under the bed every time she hears a strange noise. She falls asleep feeling comforted. In the morning, she finds her dog dead and a note that says, "Humans can lick too." This story is horrifying because it feels like it could happen. The vulnerability, the false sense of safety, the sheer violation of trust. There's no evidence this specific case occurred, but it's circulated for decades in different forms, and it's always a hit at sleepovers because we know what it's like to feel safe and then question that safety. Okay, this one sounds absurd, but it's actually real. The urban legend goes, someone sits on the toilet and feels a bite. A snake had slithered up through the pipes. And while it sounds like a campfire gag, it's happened. In 2020, a man in Austria was bitten by a 5-foot python in his own bathroom. Australia happens more often than you think. Thailand, same thing. Plumbing plus nature equals nightmare fuel. This legend hits on something deeply modern. The fear that people who are supposed to protect you might not be who they say they are. In the 1990s, there were a string of reports in the US and UK of people posing as child protective services workers, showing up at homes, asking strange questions, trying to enter unannounced. Most were dismissed as hoaxes, but some families swore the visitors knew intimate details about their kids and vanished before being identified. No official kidnappings were ever confirmed, but the fear stuck. And now it's part of internet lore. Another modern urban legend born out of distrust, surveillance, and institutional fear. What makes these stories so powerful is that they ride the line. They feel like they could happen. Sometimes they did. And even when they don't, they speak to something real, something we're already afraid of. Do you have a legend like this where you're from? A story that sounded fake until you realized it was real? DM me at the Scaryverse podcast or drop a comment. I want to do a listener episode filled with your hometown horrors. So, urban legends used to spread around campfires, over phone calls, or in the back of classrooms. Now, they spread on TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube Shorts. And the speed, wild. A story that used to take a decade to become a legend now goes viral overnight. The internet didn't kill urban legends, it gave them new life. And honestly, some of the scariest modern ones were born completely online. Let's start with the big one, Slender Man. He was created in 2009 by a user named Victor Surge on the Something Awful forums. A tall, faceless figure in a black suit with tentacle-like limbs. He stalked children, appeared in the woods, and made people disappear. Users started photoshopping him into playgrounds. Others wrote stories, what we now call creepypasta, and a mythos was born. He was fiction until he wasn't. In 2014, two 12-year-old girls in Wisconsin lured their friend into the woods and stabbed her 19 times, claiming they were doing it for Slender Man. Their goal? To become his proxies and prove that he was real. The girls survived, but the story changed everything. Slender Man went from being a meme to a symbol of internet mythology gone too far. Parents panicked. Schools warned students. And the idea that something fictional could inspire real-life violence, that made Slender Man legendary. Have you heard of Randonautica? It's an app that gives you random GPS coordinates based on your intention, like adventure or creepy. People started using it for TikTok content, and what they found was disturbing. One group found an abandoned house with bloodstains. Another ended up in a cemetery at night, completely alone. But the wildest story, in 2020, a group of teens in Seattle followed Randonautica to a beach and found a suitcase. Inside, human remains. The footage is still online, and it went mega viral. The app's creators say it was coincidence, but the legend was sealed. This story originated on Reddit's No Sleep subreddit, and took off like wildfire. A guy's walking home late at night. He sees a man dancing down the street. Bizarre, jerky, unnatural. The man has a wide, terrifying smile, and he doesn't break eye contact. He follows the storyteller for several blocks, dancing closer, until finally he just stops and smiles. And it ends there. Simple, creepy, and instantly memorable. Users began to share similar experiences. YouTubers made short films. Some even claimed to see smiling men in real life. Was it just a good story or something that touched a deeper primal fear? On TikTok, legends move differently. You'll see someone post a video with this caption: "Don't say this name at 3 a.m." or "Try this sound in your room alone, but turn your volume down." There are filters that claim to reveal ghosts, haunted numbers you're dared to call, clips that vanish if you don't save them. One of the most viral trends, the Shadow Man filter. Users would film themselves using this Snapchat lens, and then when they played it back, they claimed to see someone standing behind them. Real? Edited? Doesn't matter. The fear spreads either way. This one still freaks me out. Reddit threads started sharing tales from forest rangers who discovered freestanding staircases in the middle of the woods. No ruins, no house, no context, just stairs leading nowhere. And the advice? Don't climb them. Why? One ranger said everyone who climbed them went missing within the year. Another said he saw the same staircase in different forests, hundreds of miles apart. Urban legend, ARG. Either way, the internet made it spread fast, and now there's even a series of horror books inspired by it. Then we have the back rooms. This legend started as a single photo, a yellow hallway with buzzing fluorescent lights. Someone posted it and said, "If you're not careful and you no clip out of reality, you'll end up here." That single image turned into an entire horror universe. People imagined creatures that roamed the halls, floors with different dangers, rules you had to follow or you die. The vibe? Empty, endless, familiar, but wrong. It's horror built on a feeling, and it's entirely digital, yet it feels ancient. What's so wild is that these stories don't even pretend to be true. They're born in comments and captions, but we treat them like folklore. And that's what makes them modern legends. What's the scariest thing you've seen on TikTok, Reddit, or YouTube? Something you knew was fake, but still got under your skin. Tag me at the Scaryverse podcast or leave a voice note. I want to hear what haunts your algorithm. So after all this, why do we keep telling these stories? Why do we pass on tales of Bloody Mary, of backseat killers, of demonic elevators and haunted staircases, even when we know they're probably fake? We whisper them, we search for them, we warn each other. Why? Because deep down, we need them. Urban legends serve a purpose. They're not just for thrills. They're a kind of social survival mechanism. Think of them as emotional rehearsals. They let us walk through danger from a safe distance. If you hear the story of a woman who picked up a stranger and never made it home, maybe you think twice before letting someone in your car. If your friend tells you a story about a babysitter who got a call from inside the house, maybe you double check the locks. These stories train us. I'll never forget the first time I heard that babysitter story. I was maybe 9 years old, and someone told me a girl was babysitting. The kids were asleep upstairs. She kept getting weird phone calls. Turns out the calls were coming from inside the house. I didn't sleep right for a week. And every time I was alone in the house after that, I checked every room. Was that story true? Probably not. But it taught me something about awareness and vulnerability, and maybe about trusting my gut. There's also a moral function to these stories. Many urban legends are essentially modern fables. Just like Don't Stray from the Path in Little Red Riding Hood, we get don't flash your lights at other cars. It might be a gang initiation. Don't babysit alone. Don't do anything risky at night. It's often about control, especially over kids and teens. The Hookman legend, a warning about premarital sex. The poisoned Halloween candy panic, a warning about trusting strangers. Pop rocks and soda myth, a warning not to push your body too far. We tell these stories to set boundaries, even if they're based in fear instead of fact. But it's not just about lessons. Urban legends also bring us together. Think about it. How many times have you sat in a circle, shared a scary story, and felt that buzz, that little electrical pulse of fear, followed by a laugh or a gasp or a quiet, "No way, that happened to my cousin"? Urban legends are shared fear, and shared fear is bonding. Some stories scare us, some protect us, some help us feel less alone in the dark. And I think that's what I love most about them. They remind us that we're all a little scared. We're all looking for patterns, for explanations, for ways to say, this is how the world works. Don't go near that. Stay safe. Even when we know better, part of us still wonders, but what if it's real? What's the one urban legend that still lives rent-free in your brain? Like, you know it's probably fake, but you still hesitate just a little bit. Maybe it's Bloody Mary. Maybe it's the girl in the back seat. Tag me at the Scaryverse podcast and tell me yours. I'll share some listener favorites in an upcoming bonus episode. So far, we've talked about legends from Japan to Reddit. But now let's take it back to the classics. These are the urban legends that lived on playgrounds in the 80s and 90s. The ones your older cousin swore were true. The ones that shaped Halloween safety rules, school bans, and childhood anxiety. They're not just creepy, they're cultural canon. You've heard it before. A woman's driving home at night. She stops at a gas station. The attendant acts weird. He tells her to come inside. Her car didn't go through. She hesitates, but follows him in. And once they're inside, he locks the door and whispers, "There's someone in your back seat." Chills, right? The story first started circulating in the 1960s. It's been told hundreds of ways, but always with that same gut punch twist. The fear here is so real because it taps into something primal. You're alone, you're in your car, and you didn't see the danger coming. Real life crime reports have occasionally involved someone hiding in a car, but the frequency of this actually happening extremely low. Still, I check my backseat to this day, and I'm not the only one. Do you check your backseat before driving? Or did that story ruin you too? Let me know at the Scaryverse podcast. This one might be the most well-known urban legend in the US. Every October, parents warn their kids, don't eat anything unwrapped. Check for needles, razor blades, poison. The fear that strangers are tampering with candy and handing it out to kids. The reality, there are almost no confirmed cases of random strangers poisoning Halloween candy. But here's the twist. One case did happen. In 1974, a man named Ronald Clark O'Brien gave his own son cyanide-laced pixie stick to collect life insurance money. He tried to blame it on a madman giving out poisoned treats, but it didn't work. He was arrested, convicted, and eventually executed. So while the random stranger part isn't real, that one case was all it took to cement this legend into public consciousness. Today, most Halloween candy tampering cases turn out to be hoaxes or kids trying to get attention. This one is hilarious and iconic. The rumor was if you eat a pack of Pop Rocks and then chug a soda, especially Coke, stomach will explode. And the victim, Mikey, the kid from the Life cereal commercials. Supposedly, he died this way. In truth, Mikey, aka actor John Gilchrist, is alive and well. The candy company had to do serious PR work in the 1980s because this myth wouldn't go away. So what made it stick? It's science-y, it's rebellious, and it makes kids feel like they're playing with danger. Even though Pop Rocks and soda are totally safe, this legend lives on. It even inspired a scene in Urban Legend from 1998. Yes. The terrifying tale of international travel gone wrong. A man wakes up in a hotel bathtub full of ice. There's a note. Call 911. Your kidney has been removed. This story first spread in email chains in the late 90s. People swore it happened in Mexico or Eastern Europe or Vegas, depending on who was telling it. There's never been a verified case, that exactly matches this narrative. But here's the creepy part. Black market organ trafficking is real. It just doesn't happen the way the story says. Still, the legend works because it combines a fear of being helpless, fear of hospitals and surgery, and fear of being taken advantage of while vulnerable. What makes these classic legends so effective is how grounded they feel. They all involve normal situations, riding in a car, eating candy, going to a party, and then something goes horribly wrong. They're warnings, yes, but they're also comfort in a weird way. Because if you just follow the rules, check the back seat, don't talk to strangers, don't mix candy and soda, then maybe you'll be safe. Maybe. What was your first urban legend growing up? Was it one of these or something totally local? Tell me at the Scaryverse podcast. I love hearing how these stories change across towns. All right, spooky besties. If you've made it this far, you're not just a listener, you're an urban legend scholar now. And you know what that means. It's time for your weekly horror homework. You know the drill. This is your chance to go deeper, creepier, and nerdier with me. This week's horror homework is all about diving further into the folklore we've been unpacking. Okay, so your first assignment is watch Urban Legend from 1998. It's a campy, bloody slasher that turns every urban legend we've talked about into a college campus killing spree. The backseat killer, the kidney heist, even pop rocks and soda. It's not perfect, but it's so fun if you like late 90s horror and meta storytelling. Number 2, read The Vanishing Hitchhiker by Jan Harold Brunvand. I don't know how to say that. This is like the folklore professor's Bible for urban legends. The author was one of the first people to actually study these stories seriously, how they travel, how they evolve, and why they matter. He's the reason we even call them urban legends. Number 3, watch Cropsey from 2009. It's a documentary. This one is not for the faint of heart. It's a real investigation into the Staten Island boogeyman we talked about earlier and how the myth turned out to be rooted in a horrifying truth. If you've ever wondered how a story can protect a community and conceal a predator, watch this. Your bonus assignment could be to try the elevator game, but safely. Not for real, unless you want to, but read through one of the TikTok threads or watch a few Randonautica videos. Then ask yourself, would I do it? Would I follow the steps? Because sometimes just reading the instructions is scary enough. And if you do try one of these rituals, don't blame me if something follows you home. Just kidding. Kinda. Urban legends aren't just ghost stories. They're survival guides. They're social control. They're folklore, memes, and morality tales all rolled into one. But most of all, they remind us that we're not alone in our fear. That no matter what decade you grew up in, whether you heard Bloody Mary in a bathroom or saw the back rooms on TikTok, we're all trying to make sense of the unknown. So, what's the urban legend you can't stop thinking about? What was passed down in your town? Which one still makes you double check the back seat or avoid mirrors in the dark? Tell me. DM at the Scaryverse podcast on Instagram or Threads. I want to read your hometown horrors in a future bonus episode. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and maybe, just maybe, don't say her name in the mirror. See you next week, besties.